because over the last 3-ish months, we've heard from a lot of folks who live in the vicinity of Braddock Road and Burke Station near the Woodley Chase facility, near the new DMV facility, about challenges navigating the intersection there, intersections, challenges getting in and out of their neighborhood. And because there are so many entities involved, I wanted to have one meeting so all of them could hear from you about what you're seeing and what you are experiencing. Just to set expectations, I don't anticipate that this is a meeting tonight where we will solve this issue, but my hope is that all of the different players can hear from you directly about, again, what you're seeing and what you're experiencing, and go back and I will ask them to work on ways to address the challenges that you all are facing. And we have a lot of folks with us tonight, and I apologize if I miss anyone. We have a representative of Delegate David Bulova's office. Rama Van Pelt is with us. A representative of Delegate Helmer's office, Stephanie Sedgwick, is with us. I think we have Delegate Laura Jane Cohen on the line as well. In terms of the groups and entities that are involved in this neck of the woods, we have a representative of Erickson Living. I saw Michael Slavin from the DMV who's here. We have representatives from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation and the Virginia Department of Transportation, or VDOT. So thank you all for joining us and taking some time to hear what the community is dealing with. And our format tonight, we'll keep it relatively informal, but we're going to share a graphic of the area. Those of you who live there will be familiar with it, but because there are so many different intersections and so many different intersection movements, we wanted to put it up on the screen to help orient our conversations tonight. So as you're describing, what you're dealing with, you can refer to the graphic. So I really want to start just by opening it up to the community and letting you share with us what you're experiencing. Again, we have folks from VDOT, FCDOT, Erickson Living, and DMV. And once we hear from you, I'll give them an opportunity if they have anything that they would like to share. But the important goal here tonight is for them to hear from you, and then for them to I hope, and I will ask them to go back and work to develop solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing. So you can, the best way for us to proceed here is if you want to speak, to raise your hand. You should have a raise hand button at the top of your screen, at least on my screen is at the top. So if you click that button, I'll try to call on folks in the order that your hand is raised. Those of you who are on the phone, Marcia, is there a way for folks who are on the phone to raise their hand?
Yes, I believe there is.
Do we know what? There's a button that they have to press if they're on their phone.
I haven't done it, but I believe that if they press, I think it's *6. Let me verify.
Okay, well, in the meantime, I will, at a certain point, I will just provide the opportunity for anyone who's on the phone to speak up. So let's start. I see Scott had his hand up first. So Scott, why don't you kick it off for us?
Okay, start off with Supervisor and Marcia. Thanks for putting this together. I think it's long overdue. I'm Scott Leach. I'm president of Somerset South HOA, but I'm not representing everybody there. There's a lot of opinions out there, but I'm here to give you a general sense of what we're feeling in the community here, and then some personal observation.
Let me just remind everyone, if you're not speaking, please click mute.
I get out on Braddock Road once or twice a day, as does my wife. So we've got some personal observations. Just as background, Somerset South is 213 homes here. We are accessed by Herend Place and Denby Drive there. The homes are between 40 to 45 years old. I just say, to general sense of walking around the neighborhood and talking to people, there's a general displeasure, and that's been continuing. You can't get together with 2 or 3 neighbors without somebody saying, I'm sick of the traffic or the U-turns, and nobody seems to be listening to me. And oh, by the way, it's only going to get worse. I mean, Woodley Chase is best, I'm told, is probably at 20% of its final capacity, maybe less than that. We've got the DMV, I think it looks like it's picking up more traffic. It's going to be more popular. And then we hear about the rec center there that may or may not arrive, but that's just going to generate more traffic and more kind of out of Braddock visitors. So clearly the biggest complaint that I hear is the U-turns that occur on Braddock Road going to east to westbound on Herend Place. It backs up there. It used to be a rarity that anybody would be taking a U-turn there. Now it's pretty commonplace, and it backs things up. People don't know what they're doing. My wife witnessed somebody making a 3-point turn on the westbound Braddock as they were trying to make a U-turn. So it's just really caused delays and safety problems that are only going to get worse. And as best as I can see, the problems, what's generating that is westbound traffic on Braddock Road that's looking for the DMV, go right past it because it's not marked well, if at all. And they go, oh my God, I got to turn around. They fly across a lane and then get the nearest U-turn, and they're all flustered and confused. And then you have the people that are leaving the DMV that are unfamiliar with the area, and they go they go east on Braddock Road when they really want to go west, but they're confused, or just not knowing what they're doing. So they fly across the road, across eastbound Braddock, to get a U-turn on westbound Braddock at Herend. Or they turn into Herend, do a U-turn on Herend, or go into Herend and use Sarah Lane and Denby as a loop to get back on Braddock. So those are the big things. We're also concerned about, a lot of people are concerned about that intersection on Braddock Station Road headed south to Braddock. And as traffic builds, people coming in and out of Woodley Chase, it's only going to get worse. And that intersection, the south end of Burke Station Road, probably needs to be reworked at some time with another lane put in there for turns. But anyway, we see this, or I see that, we see this as a DMV sign that is in front of at the side of the DMV building, is of no use to anybody going down Braddock Road. You don't see it until you're almost past. And in fact, about 2 weeks ago, I was coming down there and somebody stopped on Braddock Road after the entrance to the DMV. They backed up on Braddock Road and came into the DMV. I mean, just amazing. The signs in the DMV parking lot are totally inadequate. They're too small to tell people to go east, west, go up to the Woodley Chase exit or whatnot. They just need to be bigger, but there could be better fixes in that. The congestion at where you come out of the cemetery there, that people in Braddock Road, a lot of people are hesitant about taking a left on coming out of Herend to take a left on Braddock Road. So they'd rather, and have in the past, gone down Braddock and then taken a U-turn at the cemetery entrance. But as traffic has picked up there, people are backing up. And again, it's just going to get worse and worse, and we really can't put off addressing it. The coming out of the DMV, going east on Braddock, the acceleration, or I should say the non-existent acceleration lane there, people pulling out in traffic. And just overall, getting back to the community, we just feel like we were kind of sold a bill of goods with traffic studies that went on. And we kind of got the impression and led to believe that there was going to be a no U-turn allowed at Herend. I think I've covered with some of the personal observations. I think the simple answer is, do we really need that DMV exit entrance? Can't we just direct everybody at the light at Burke Station to come into Woodley and get down there? If you can't do that, the exit out of the DMV to go east on Braddock, there's really no need for that. Half the people are confused and are a safety hazard. If you just close that exit off and send everybody back that's exiting the DMV up to the eastbound, well, east and westbound, send them up to the light at Braddock's at Burke Station. And the signs on Braddock Road, can't we have signs that say DMV next left, DMV next right, depending on which way you're going? We have the state police barracks sign that says next right. Put something in the median that gives people a little bit of lead time so that they're just not glued to their navigation or their cell phone, and have it readable. And also, if you have signs in the DMV lot saying east and west, is fine for probably most of the people on this phone call. But new generations coming up, they don't know east from west, north from south. Why not say west GMU, east Beltway, or something like that, just to get people oriented. But that's kind of an overview of what I'm hearing and what I've personally observed. It's just confused drivers on Braddock Road that get out there and they're staring at their cell phone, wondering where the heck's the DMV and where do I turn around to get myself headed in the other direction. So, yeah, thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Scott. I think that's a really good overview of the situation. And as I've shared when I've come to your neighborhood, I've been in that position many times of coming out of Herend and trying to make that left turn onto Braddock, and it was difficult before any of this happened. It's one of those challenging, unsignalized left turns onto Braddock Road that we have. So I know that the U-turns have made that more complicated and scary. It's a little bit scary making that turn out of there. And we have had conversations with DMV and Erickson about improving the signage within the sites, and they are exploring that. I know I hadn't thought of one of the points you made, which is better signage or signage at all out on Braddock Road to better orient people. That's a really good suggestion. So we will definitely ask folks to take a look at that and see whether that can be accomplished. Let me move on to.
Excuse me, James,
Yeah.
but I can't, as long as I'm speaking somewhat for the HOA, there is
Sure.
a huge contingent, a contingent inside the HOA that would just love a light at Herend and Braddock, but I know that may be a bridge too far.
Yeah, and as we've discussed, that is something that VDOT has looked at. They looked at it when the Erickson facility was approved, and it did not and has not. I don't want to speak for VDOT; they're here, but my understanding is it has not met their criteria. And as I also shared with Somerset South, I'm going to ask them to take another look at that once the Woodley Chase facility is, I won't say fully occupied because that'll be a long time coming, but occupied to the extent that the traffic levels are predictable and have risen to where we think they'll rise and potentially change that calculation. But that's a decision that VDOT makes, and they make it based on objective criteria and data. So Shelley, go ahead. You might be muted. You're muted, Shelley. Yep.
I was muted. Thank you so much. I actually live at Woodley Chase, so I'm sorry if I've offended.
Great,
anybody.
welcome.
I only go when I come out on Braddock by the DMV. I'm only going east. I do not go west. my question is, when I want to go west and I come out at Burke Station, are there any plans to put in a left-hand light turn there? I've sometimes had, if there's a lot of traffic coming south on Burke Station, I sometimes wait 3 or 4 lights to be able to make a left-hand turn onto Braddock.
So you're saying there's no left-hand turn arrow. You just have a yield.
No. Yeah, you have to wait for all the traffic to come in. And I have, not often, but a few times I'm like, it's like 3 lights and I still haven't made it through.
Yeah.
Going ahead isn't, going straight on Burke Station, not as a problem, but a left-hand turn lane. And thank you for the crosswalks. Those are great. I use them a lot. So when I'm walking, so those are really, having those is extremely helpful.
Yeah, well, let me, not to put anyone on the spot, and we might have to get back to you on that question. Are there any plans from VDOT to take a look at the signals and signal timing at that intersection once Woodley Chase is even more open than it already is? Is there a plan to reevaluate that and see whether a left turn signal is warranted?
Supervisor, this is Andy. I'm going to see if one of my colleagues might be able to weigh in on that subject. We have Leanne Hall from our land development section. And Leanne, I don't know if you happen to be aware if there's any triggers for additional improvements at that intersection. You are currently muted if you're trying to talk.
I'm here now. You're talking about Burke Center. I'm sorry, Burke
Burke
Station.
Station.
Yeah,
Southbound
and I think the question was, right now, if you're leaving Woodley Chase, there's not a left turn arrow, right? So you don't have
Correct.
that movement. You just have a yield on green. Is there any process whereby that can be reevaluated to see whether a left turn arrow is warranted? And one of the things you might want to talk through is the potential impacts that could have on the east-west traffic on Braddock.
Yes, I understand. Actually, I'm going to defer to Non-Vu. He is within our traffic group, and he could give you more answers more specifically. Non, are you available?
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you, Leanne. So just in general, as you know, currently the traffic lights is still under construction and still owned by the developers. And then we were hoping after this conversation, we will have a discussion with them how we can improve the signal phasing. As you say, the supervisor, so additional phasing, that means going to take time away from the main line. And this type of phase running concurrent phasing from the side street is actually occurring throughout Braddock Road, even at even higher traffic volumes. You can see at Queensberry, at Kings Park, and as well as Southampton. So it's very common. Many people are aware, but very common where we have light traffics. I was wondering, but at the same time, if the left turn, as Ms. Brosman stated there, maybe the 3 cycle, that's quite a long time. You notice it too, we actually have a camera at one of the northwest corner there. And we observe that not many traffic coming out of the facility currently. So that's the reason that the developer decide to keep it as existing condition run concurrent. However, as as traffic increasing, and we can discuss hopefully with them to see if they able to do a study and maybe address the situation accordingly.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like you can have that conversation now or soon with the developer, but also when the light turns over to VDOT, at that point, you'll evaluate the phasing to see whether it's still appropriate.
Yes.
Okay, Shelley, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, next I see Diana. Diana, you. Go ahead, Diana.
Yes, hello. I'm Diana Yu. I am also a member of the Somerset South HOA board. I won't rehash any of Scott's points, but I did want to add to Shelley's point. Coming, south on Burke Station Road, it's a very common link up between Little River Turnpike and Braddock Road, a well-traveled area for those of us who live around here. And there's a, I think, autopilot that folks are on who are used to not having traffic coming out of Woodley Chase. And I've seen a number of near misses of people turning left and almost hitting somebody coming out of Woodley Chase, who's coming straight. So I think, again, a left turn arrow both ways is a good idea to avoid that sort of thing going forward, especially as more folks are trying to go across Braddock Road from Woodley Chase. The other thing that I did want to mention is back to the DMV entrance and the DMV exit, really. Our GPS and navigation apps are directing folks out that way and then telling them to either make a U-turn or come through Somerset South. So if you are somebody who is relying on an app, many of us will be, especially going to a new place like a DMV that's brand new, that is going to drive folks, regardless of signage. If their app is on and it's telling them to go right, they may do that. So I think two things can happen. Folks can provide feedback to the Google Maps online and indicate that those directions are not ideal. And I don't know to what extent VDOT has pull and can recommend an alternative path that is in line with the signage. That's another possibility.
And
Yeah.
Supervisor, I'll just weigh in. We do have a relationship with Waze, and we may be able to discuss that with them. I have to look into it a little bit more, but that might be a possibility.
Yeah, it's a great point, Diana. And there is, I am aware of other neighborhoods that have been successful going through the Google Maps process to try to, because they do have a reporting process for neighborhood cut through traffic. How they ultimately make that decision, I don't know. But they do have that process. So that is a good thing for the neighborhood to consider pursuing, in addition to VDOT reaching out to Waze.
Yep. Speaking as someone who works on digital products, volume of feedback is
Yeah, sure.
one thing that they weigh. So the more folks who weigh in, the better.
Great. Okay. Next, and Shelley and Diana, unless you have other comments, you can just take your hand down if you don't mind, so I can see the next group. We have Eric and Merrill, I think. Eric and Merrill.
Mary Lee.
Mary Lee, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for putting this on. Appreciate it. We live in George Mason Forest off of Red Spruce. And great point by the first gentleman about diverting people from the DMV to the light and just eliminate that exit and entrance, just have them turn in at the light. That's a great point. The other thing is Workstation Road coming south to Braddock. Just change the lanes, keep the right turn lane only, and then change the other lane to left and straight. I mean, that's a simple fix right there. And then the other thing about the new apartments, that's got to change. We can't even get out of our neighborhood. People are coming out of the apartments wanting to go west on Braddock and stop in the middle, or turn left coming east on Braddock and turning left in the complex. And I'm not talking about Woodley Chase. I'm talking about the new apartment buildings across from Red Spruce. We can't get out of our neighborhood. And we were told originally when we met with the developer that they were going to make it only going out of the complex and going east on Braddock, that you couldn't go west on Braddock. So I agree with the first gentleman again that we were sold a bill of goods. We met with people and nobody freaking listened to us. And it's very frustrating. So, but those are my points. The easy fix on Burke Station Road, just change the lanes, keep the right turn on red, and the middle lane, just make it straight and left, and then change the sequence of the lights so people can get out of Woodley Chase. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next, Julie Stewart.
It sounds like this might have already been going. I had it written down at 7:30. Yeah, I don't have audio.
Yeah. Hello, this is Mike Stewart and Julie Stewart. We're in George Mason Forest, like the Mondashines. Julie's the vice president with the Homeowners Association here. And just want to put a couple of other things in perspective. So in George Mason Forest, the preponderance of the community is on red spruce. We have about 200 homes total in the homeowners or in the development. About 2/3 of them are off of red spruce. One block down, we have the other portion of the community off of Tapestry. Each of those communities only have one route in and out of the community. So those on red spruce only have red spruce. Unlike Somerset South, we don't have two routes in and out of each of the developments, or parts of our development. So we're kind of hamstrung. So, and there has become a ripple effect. So yeah, left turn, as Mr. Monashine mentioned, is pretty much impossible nowadays. So everybody has to continue to go. If they come out, they have to make a right. And then it's a ripple effect, one block down from Red Spruce down to Tapestry. And those folks can't get out, so they have to go down another block down to Roberts. And there's a new community that just got built there within the last year with several homes, as well as the university. So the problem keeps moving westbound. It's compounded also with the traffic and the speed. People are traveling in excess of 50 miles an hour up and down this road, even though it's zoned for 40. So it's become a hazard trying to make turns, trying to enter onto Braddock Road. If we could do something else to slow down some of the traffic, that'd be appreciated, or at least kind of control the movement in and out for the directions as most everybody else has been pointing out. But I just want to put that in perspective of what we're dealing with in George Mason Forest. And it's not just what's on the map. If you go down, a half a mile to the west, it just keeps going down and down and down. There's no improvement. So that's what we'd like to add to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Terry?
Yes.
Okay. Next, and just a reminder to folks, if you're not muted, please mute yourself. Julie Stewart. No, I'm sorry. We just did Julie and Mike. It says M. Lockard. M. Lockard.
I don't know if we're muted.
M. Lockard, if you're speaking, you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Walkinshaw, for hosting this meeting. I think it's very important for us to have this discussion, even though we've had it for years before Woodley Chase was put into place, when George Mason was expanding. These discussions have been going on for years. And to point out to everyone, first of all, that Braddock Road from the Beltway is a direct route west and I guess east when you look at it, if you're coming in that direction, to the major roads that get people across Fairfax County, including the Fairfax County Parkway and out to Route 28 in Prince William County. So it's a very highly trafficked road, in addition to the traffic that is going throughout most of the year to George Mason University. And we can't overlook that fact, because now we have high school graduations going on, and we are faced with whether or not we can even exit our community. I live in George Mason Forest. I've been a resident here for over 35 years. I've served on the George Mason Forest board for numerous years, and I don't know if there's anyone else here other than a couple of people before me who spoke. I live on Tapestry Drive, and I can tell you that it is become very difficult and extremely unsafe to try and leave my community many times throughout the day because of the traffic on Braddock Road. We have the state police traffic, we have the cemetery traffic, we now have Woodley Chase traffic, which somebody mentioned it is only at 20% of its capacity at this point. I can't even imagine when it is at 100% what we're going to be facing. We have the DMV traffic, we'll have the rec center traffic if that is created. We have the affordable housing apartment complex that was put in near Woodley Chase, which is a real concern because, as somebody just mentioned, we thought they were coming out to go right and east on Braddock Road. People are constantly trying to go west on Braddock Road, and it is a true safety concern. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the unfortunate accident that occurred on Burke Center Parkway near the Chick-fil-A and Kohl's, where children were killed because they tried to make a left-hand turn. And I fear that that's what we're going to be facing on Braddock Road near our community, both at Somerset South, I'm sure, and at George Mason Forest as well. In addition to that, people constantly try and make U-turns where because they can, there's no sign that tells them they cannot make a U-turn. Primarily we see it at Tapestry Drive because of George Mason, people either missing it coming eastbound and or people going westbound that may have missed the DMV Woodley Chase or the new apartment complex that they're trying to turn around and go back to, in addition to a lot of other community people who can't get out of their communities along that stretch of Braddock Road. So I find it, and I'm hopeful that you'll be able to do something about it. And I've heard some very good suggestions made so far, in addition to the light at Burke Station Road and how maybe you can utilize that to have more people go in and go out for the DMV at that location. But I really think that you need to take into consideration for those people who are here from VDOT, from where people at Somerset South, starting maybe at the state police station or even before that at Twinbrook, all the way west as you're going out Braddock Road and or eastbound, whichever direction you're going. That's a stretch of road that has had so much commercial development placed into it over these past few years that something really needs to be done. And I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't know if you can coordinate lights better at Burke Station and Roberts Road. But it is really becoming worse and worse and worse. And when you live in a community for 35 years and some days you can't even make a left to get out of your community to go eastbound on Braddock Road, and then you try to go westbound to accommodate making a U-turn yourself to go eastbound, it's very difficult and it's becoming more and more dangerous. And one other thing to add to that, many times our intersection at Tapestry and Braddock is blocked because of the traffic going westbound to get into the university for classes at many times of the day. So it's a complex issue. I'm sure there are people on this VDOT who are working on this. I certainly hope that they are, but I thank you again, Mr. Walkinshaw, for hosting this meeting, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and the last couple folks for sharing that our challenges west of what we have on our map here as well. And folks in this area are familiar with obviously George Mason University and the way that they can operate they're a state institution, so do not need approval from Fairfax County to develop on their campus or on properties that they own. We do obviously communicate and collaborate with them, and they share information with us about their plans, and they've been working through a master planning process for both the main Fairfax campus and the West Campus area west of 123. And in all of those conversations, I promise you, they are sick of hearing me talk about the importance of their giving some thought and attention and investment to how people get to the campus, not just what people, students, faculty, visitors will do and how they get around within the campus, but how they get to the campus. And I ring that bell at every opportunity that I have, and will continue to do so, because I know the impacts that it has on the surrounding communities. And we all want George Mason to continue to thrive, but they have to be cognizant of the impacts that they have on the surrounding neighborhoods. So let me go to Jim Godlove. Jim, go ahead. Jim, you're on mute if you're speaking. Can you hear us, Jim? Jim? Okay, looks like maybe Jim's hand went down. Let's go to Ann Y. Ann Y.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I am also a resident of Somerset South, and I actually exit the neighborhood usually by Denby Drive, even if I am going east, because it is very difficult to get across that. And I go up to where it says Rec Center Drive, usually at the cemetery, to make a U-turn. Certain times of the day I could get across if I go out Herend, but normally it's the Denby U-turn drive. So you're competing with people coming out of the cemetery. And the other day I was making the U-turn and there was somebody exiting the DMV area at Rec Center Drive and just barreled right onto Braddock Road with that turn lane. And after I did my errands, I went back because I was really upset by that whole situation, because the woman actually had a cell phone in her left hand when she was driving out of the DMV. And I wanted to go in and see how the signage was. The first thing I noticed, I did not see a stop sign there to get onto Braddock Road. It just looked like a yield, like you would take a right. And then I went into the parking lot and I saw those signs that kind of directed people, but they're very difficult to read to go if you're going eastbound. And I do have to say, a lot of people don't know which way is east and which way is west. I have to say that. So I do think there needs to be better signage. Could somebody please verify that that stop sign is there? I did not see one. And then I thought maybe it was taken down when the school bus went into the DMV back in April. I don't know the situation of that. And also today, actually, when I was coming out of Burke Station, I was at that light and I was making the turn. Someone was obviously going to the DMV, and luckily I was behind that person kind of far back, and they must have had GPS on. Well, that turn to get into Rec Center Drive comes up quite soon. She went over all the lanes of traffic and turned in there very quickly. So it just seems like things are very congested there, and there needs to be better flow. So I think if you could put in some sort of, if it's going to be a yield, like that is up at Sideburn Road, when you come off of Sideburn Road to Braddock Road across from George Mason, it's quite nice. There's a breather area for cars coming off of Sideburn where they could turn on, it doesn't back up the traffic, and they can gradually yield onto Braddock Road. I don't know if there's enough room to do that at that Rec Center Drive to make that right turn. So they're not competing with people coming out of the cemetery, eastbound traffic on Braddock Road, and people taking a U-turn to get out of the neighborhood. So those are my concerns, and hopefully they could be addressed.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Mhm.
Bob Cosgrove, go ahead, Bob. You're on mute, Bob. You're still on mute, Bob. To unmute, you can click the mic. There's a mic button at the top of your screen, probably at the
Got it.
top of your, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, good evening, and thank you Supervisor Walkinshaw for hosting this meeting. For the knowledge of the other people attending, I'm Supervisor Walkinshaw's representative on the Fairfax County Trails, Sidewalks, and Bikeways Committee. And I'm going to speak specifically to pedestrian safety here. It may have already been touched on, maybe not. I joined a little bit late. But in addition to the increase of traffic and some of the confusing turnings and U-turns and so forth that have been discussed already, we can expect with the large population of active adults at Erickson that there's going to be a lot of pedestrian traffic on Braddock Road and trying to cross Braddock Road, possibly going up Burke Station Road. If you look in the diagram in the little yellow box there, the cemetery alternate entrance, that's directly opposite to my subdivision, Hickory Farms. And we sort of expect some of these Erickson residents are going to be walking up through the cemetery, up Burke Station Road, maybe coming into our neighborhood, and we certainly welcome that. But the problem is getting them across Braddock Road safely. And I have experience at that light since they put it in for a pedestrian crossing, because I run some of my running routes go to that corner. I said, oh, great, there's a light here. So I pressed the button, the light changed. I had to walk. There's a car coming southbound on Burke Station Road going eastbound on Braddock. I saw them. I'm not sure they saw me, but they acted like they didn't. I got safely across. I think one of the things we might have to ask VDOT to do is put a rest and walk function on that light. So when a pedestrian is crossing, you give them time to cross before any car going in any direction on Burke Station Road or out of Erickson makes a turn. So the pedestrians for that 20-second, 30-second cycle, they're the only people that are moving. And it's going to eliminate the possibility of a lot of potential injuries of pedestrians or even bicyclists that cross that bike path there on the multi-user path. So that's what I'm going to address, is the pedestrian safety issue, because that's one of our committee's biggest priorities throughout the county. But I'm going to bring it home to Braddock District and focus it on that corner. So I'd ask that we approach VDOT to change the light to include a safe period rest and walk cycle for pedestrians at that corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Really good point, that in the ongoing analysis of that intersection, as we discussed, maybe before you hopped on, but really good point that the pedestrian safety be a big part of that, because I think you will have folks from Woodley Chase who are crossing, and the cemetery is very welcoming to folks in the community who want to walk and enjoy the ground. So I'm sure people will be wanting to do that, so that will have to be part of it. Jim Godlove is back. Your hand is back up, so maybe we'll give it another shot for Jim. You are still muted, so to unmute, click the mic button at the top of your screen. Probably have a dash across your mic button.
He just rejoined the meeting.
Okay, so maybe his hand was just still up from rejoining, but you're still muted, Jim. One of the things, if you aren't able to come off mute, you can type a question into the chat, or if you want to share your contact information in the chat, we can connect with you afterwards. Let's move on to Hazel. Go ahead, Hazel. There you go.
Hi, good evening. I apologize. I did hop on a little late as well, so I don't know if this had been mentioned. But I am at Somerset South, and like Anne, I do the same thing when we need to go eastbound. I make a U-turn at the cemetery because it's impossible to make a left onto Braddock. But even with that U-turn, with the cemetery traffic and now with the DMV, it takes forever to get through that intersection. So I was wondering if there had been conversations. I know in the past it had been mentioned, but they were not sure that it was feasible. But I wanted to inquire about the the possibility of installing a traffic light on Herend and Braddock Road, and how feasible that would be.
Yeah, thanks, Hazel. And we did touch on that a little bit earlier, but I'm happy to share again. So that's something, and folks from Somerset South can attest to this. That's a question that has been asked for many years since this project was originally put on the table. And VDOT has looked at it over the years and analyzed it, and they have, I won't ask them to get into it, but they have pretty strict objective criteria as to when a traffic signal is warranted. And when it was last analyzed, it did not meet their criteria. What I've said to Somerset South is that as Woodley Chase continues to build out and folks continue to move in and the traffic patterns normalize at something close to the kind of permanent levels of traffic from that facility, I'm going to ask VDOT to take another look at that to see whether the additional traffic and new traffic patterns change the calculus. I don't know that they will, but I will ask them to take another look at that time. Okay, Pam G.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So two things I wanted to bring up. I'm a resident of Somerset South as well. And this one seems a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's not. It's that when I am coming out of the neighborhood at Herend, sometimes, and I see a person trying to come out of the state police. And I would say 4 out of 5 times they do not use a signal. And so I have to assume they are going straight. And never are they going straight. And so I don't know if they're just wanting to take priority getting out, or if they're just forgetting. But I don't know if we could give a gentle reminder to the folks at the state police to remember to use their turn signals. That would be greatly appreciated, because it's hard to get out of our neighborhood, and that expounds it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Pam. And that is one I will ask our General Assembly delegation, a number of whom have representatives here, to reach out to the Virginia State Police and ask them to share a reminder to their folks who are using that facility to use their turn signals coming out. So great point, and we'll follow up on that. Can't guarantee 100% compliance, but I think we can probably get them to share out a reminder or put up some reminders, stuck on the wall in the break room there for folks to use their turn signal when they're leaving the facility.
Great. Yes, I appreciate that. The other item I wanted to bring up is to go back to that Burke Station light. And I understand it sounds like it's going to be a while before there can be any changes there. I'm a parent of a teenage son. I know that there are a lot of teenage drivers using that intersection. I am currently actually training my teenage son how to drive. I have a daughter who's a younger driver, but has been driving a few years now. And we have all been observing this intersection over the last few years. And truthfully, it's a frustrating intersection. I mean, you will sit at that light at Burke Station waiting to turn onto Braddock Road for ages. It's like the sensor doesn't work or something. And so people get cranky. And so you have youth driving there, you have their cranky people. Now we have elderly drivers, and then all the other drivers. And it is a disaster. I have seen multiple accidents there over the last several weeks. And now you have folks who are making U-turns, you have pedestrians, you have everyone turning at the same time because there's not individual signals there. It's frankly a terrifying intersection now. And I'm really worried that somebody's going to die. It's bound to happen. It's going to happen soon is my concern here. So I really do want to push, I feel like this is not one we should be waiting on. We should not wait for somebody to die. The other thing is when I was at the DMV for my son to get his learner's permit very recently, I spoke to an employee there, And she mentioned to me, I put this in the chat, that, and she made it sound like it was pretty much known by all of the employees there that that light at Burke Station is a death trap, and they are avoiding it. They are going out of the other exit and U-turning at Somerset South because they are terrified of that Burke Station light, because everybody is turning at the same time. Everyone wants to get through that light because they've been waiting for 3 minutes or however long it is, and it's just kind of a mess. And so I'm sorry to like add on to it. I know everybody already talked about it, but that as I talked to my son about that intersection, I just want to make sure everyone is safe. And then one other thing that came to mind on the pedestrian comment is, while we have you as the Braddock supervisor, I would also suggest looking at the Guinea Road and the Ollie Road pedestrian situation. I've seen several close calls there with pedestrians trying to safely cross and cars not noticing them.
Yeah, well, and thank you. Unfortunately, Guinea and Ollie is somewhere where we've had not just close calls, but we did have death. I guess about a year ago now, or a year and a half ago, a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Ingram. And we have been working very closely with VDOT on that intersection. They made some short-term improvements to the visibility that you probably have noticed if you travel through it. And our hope long-term is to have a traffic signal there, and we're working towards that. We have some steps to go, but we are working there. But thank you for sharing that. Sharon, go ahead, Sharon.
Yes, hey, I also live in Somerset South, and maybe you all touched on this because I came a little bit late, but are you all thinking to put a no U-turn sign at Herend and Braddock Road?
So I know that that's a question that has come up from the community, and we have not touched on it yet tonight. And why don't I turn to VDOT to talk about that process and that decision.
Before we do that, okay,
Sure.
before we do that, I just want to make some comments regarding
Okay.
the U-turns I have seen, and I have seen more and more. And I drove around DMV just to kind of see what it was like, and I am behind two cars that come out DMV. They pull in to make a left turn into Herend. They do a U-turn, both of them. I'm behind them. They came directly out of DMV. I've come the other way. I've seen cars pull out, and I watch them. All three U-turns. I've even come the other way, see cars lined up. I pull into Herend, I pull to the side, and I'm wondering, I can look out my rear window, and I'm wondering, are they going to do U-turns too? Or they? So I've seen the U-turns, and what I've seen also is cars turning in. They're doing a U-turn in the middle of the intersection of Herend and Sarah Lane, right in the middle of it. Come back out and do a right on Braddock Road. I've seen one come through and do a cut through on Sarah Lane, take a left on Denby, right back on Braddock Road. My concern, I mean, this just is not safe. And also, those of us trying to get out, it's already difficult enough trying to judge the traffic that speeds up that hill. You think you can make it, and you think you're safe, and all of a sudden you get ready to go, and these cars are coming like crazy. And then now you have people that are in line to do U-turns. You can't even see beyond them. It's just this whole situation here, you all have made it extremely unsafe and difficult for the residents of Somerset South. And I know you did a traffic thing when you all came up with the whole Woodley Chase thing and said, oh, it's not going to be a problem whatsoever. We've done this traffic, whatever, study. Well, guess what? It is a problem. And you get more and more people coming. We're never going to get out. We are never going to get out of our place because of the congestion, people doing U-turns, the people coming out of Woodley Chase, the DMV. This is a very dangerous, unsafe situation. So, okay, now you can address the U-turn. No U-turn. You need that. So,
Yeah, thank you. So I know VDOT has looked at that, the potential of no U-turn at Herend, and Andy, do we have anyone from VDOT who can give us an update on that?
Yeah, I believe that is one that we did look at, and Jan is on. I will just say before Jan speaks that I think having heard the bigger picture here of everything that's going on in this stretch, there may be some mitigation strategies that might help with that U-turn issue. So that's something that we can look at when we do go back and examine all the comments that we've received tonight. But I know Jan did look at this particular issue kind of more in isolation. So Jan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Supervisor and Sharon, for the questions. And that you stated, so we take a look at the intersections, and again, sometime when we try to do something, it can provide a counter interaction between of what we're trying to ask for, which is negative feedback. So what happened is that we received, not received, but we have seen locations where we are restricting U-turn, and as you indicate and experience something as Scott earlier from earlier description of how people would travel, if you would restrict the U-turn, now people instead do U-turn at the Braddock Road where they could, they definitely would go into your neighborhood, and you stated that people will go into Sarah Lane and U-turn there, or they will make a left turn to Sarah Lane and come back out to Denby Drive and then turn right going back. So that is the pros and cons of restricting U-turn. So that's why we currently, from our initial review, we think that by doing that, we will receive more complaint now. The people actually go into neighborhood and making U-turn or bypass the intersection versus they just do out here where potentially safe, and that's why they could potentially do it out here. But from hearing all these conversation, that's why I was concerned about traffic left turn come out at Herend, and the U-turn at the rec center. We can take a look at it and take a look, but I just warn the impact of that decision that going to make. If we make a U-turn there, it may create more problems than actually trying to resolve the situation that people U-turn on Braddock Road. So.
Well, can you also put no U-turn, no cut through? I've seen that before in signs because they can go all the way down. There's another, east on Braddock Road where they can further down do U-turn. It's a very small neighborhood. There's maybe 8 homes that come out of there versus 200 out of ours.
Yes,
Yeah.
but okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think Sharon, you're referring to Braddock Green and the
Green, yes.
Yeah. So,
yes.
and that that is something that I thought about as well. There is a median there, right? So right now,
yes.
it's not physically possible, but that's an engineering change to potentially consider. Obviously, I think Nan's point would still stand, even if people could make a U-turn at Braddock and Braddock Green. Saying no U-turn at Herend, people would pull up, see the no U-turn sign, and turn left onto Herend and be driving through the neighborhood. That's a risk. Nan, I cut you off there. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, that's correct, Supervisor. And then we have seen experience many locations in our areas, in Tyson areas, in Springfield areas, where no U-turn impacts when people actually just go into a neighborhood and U-turn. So.
Well, it just doesn't make it safe for getting out on Braddock Road. I just okay.
Yeah, I think what we've heard.
Safe.
Yeah. And I think what we have heard here tonight from VDOT is they're going to kind of take a fresh look at the whole corridor and see whether there are some other mitigation strategies. Obviously, getting folks to who want to head west to use the understanding the challenges at Burke Station, getting folks to use that signalized intersection as opposed to, making U-turns is probably going to be our best opportunity here to make an improvement. Let's try one more time for Jay Godlove.
Can you hear me now?
We got it. Yeah. All right.
Oh, I finally made the right move.
All right.
Again, Jim Godlove. I'm a resident of Somerset South, having lived previously in George Mason Forest a long time ago when Braddock Road was just a 2-lane road. What I wanted to say is, we have a near-term problem, and we have a long-term problem. The near-term problem has been exacerbated by the DMV and Woodley Chase. I'm not complaining about those developments. They're needed, certainly. What I'd like to say initially is just how do we fix the near-term problems? U-turns have existed up and down Braddock Road for as long as I can remember, but they haven't risen to the level of problem until recently, and particularly with I think DMV. And it's not that U-turns are a great thing. I'm just saying before the DMV started up, I'm not sure that the U-turns were as large a problem as they have become. And that's good that's the situation in Herend. And then there's also the problem down at Red Spruce Drive. Signage such as no left turns, no U-turns, things like that. Visually, they're comforting. The reality is people ignore them. And I see that, I'm sure everybody sees that all the time, where people just say, well, wait a minute, I'm just one person. I'm just going to make this U-turn because it's the most convenient thing. What you've got to do is to address the problem. U-turn is a consequence of the problem we have right now. And the problem for us in Somerset South is the right turn lane out of DMV onto Braddock Road at that rec center drive. That's the problem. That's what has created the biggest issues for us recently. If we were to close down the right turn access to eastbound Braddock Road, I think that alone would address a lot of the U-turn problems at Herend. This is just me talking here, because then it would force the people at DMV and ultimately the rec center, when it goes in, it would force them to Burke Station Road if they want to go east on Braddock Road. And when you put them at Burke Station Road, they're going to turn left if they want to go west. And I think the situation at Red Spruce is very similar to that. The only way you're going to stop the problem at that location is to prohibit people from turning left. Force them to go down to Burke Station Road. And here again, this is where I'm a little bit maybe at odds. I don't mean to be at odds with the folks that want to completely shut down the entrance, the southbound entrance at the cemetery into the DMV. I personally think that right turn exit into DMV has a value because it's not at all safe to do a U-turn at Burke Station Road. But someone could go on past Burke Station Road, make a right into that rec center drive, and then go back to the light where things are somewhat safer, to then head west. None of this is perfect at all, and it never will be, because Braddock Road is going to continue to get bigger. But I think shutting down the right turn lane from the rec center drive, who does that hurt? In my opinion, nobody. It may cause somebody to spend an extra minute, to go east, but that's about it. It would solve a lot of the problem, making the situation where you can't turn left out of the apartments onto westbound Braddock Road at Red Spruce Drive would help, not solve, but would certainly help their situation. So I'm looking at the immediate situation and, in my opinion, the best solution for it, which is to shut, for us, for Somerset South, shutting down that eastbound access to Braddock Road would do that. We can still go ahead and put up no U-turn signs wherever the VDOT feels that it's appropriate to do so. And I agree, the cut through Herend to Saraline to Denby, or even the U-turn on Herend Place at Saraline is not good. But that wasn't a big problem, in my view, before DMV opened. But then the long-term problem, as we've talked about, is the growth, and primarily Woodley Chase, which I understand the occupancy at Woodley Chase now is somewhere around 150 units out of 250 or so. So, we only have a little more than half the phase one occupied. So there's another 80 to 100 units to be occupied in the next few months. And then each year or two, there's going to be another 100 units added until we get to well over 1,000. That's going to be a problem at Burke Station Road. The design of the intersection from Woodley Chase onto Braddock Road, look to me, it's ideal. Left turn straight ahead, right turn lanes, perfect. But there's no light there for left turn lanes. The southbound Burke Station Road is no improvement whatsoever from what it's been for as long as I can remember. There's a left turn lane and then a straight right turn lane. And the left turn lane is very short. And so what happens is when people, it wasn't a problem when we had the old Northern Virginia, can't remember what the place was called now. There was really no traffic coming out of there. So it wasn't a problem, but now it is. All the conflicts at Burke Station Road, they're getting worse as we go along. And something needs to be done about the Burke Station side of that intersection. We don't have 7 years to solve that problem. But so those are my comments. I think the first step that could be done, and I don't see how this impacts Braddock Road in any way except from a positive standpoint, shut down that eastbound access to Braddock Road. And I think we would have a significant reduction in the U-turns at Herend, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Supervisor Walkinshaw. This has been an ideal situation. Thanks for making it possible.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Next, we have Steve Hopkins. I saw we just had a hand come up. Go ahead, Steve. Steve, you're on mute if you're okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Steve Hopkins. I live in George Mason Forest, and there's one issue about the intersection at Red Spruce that is unique. Haven't heard it for any of the other intersections, and that is we have two communities, the apartments in George Mason Forest, coming out or trying to get into their place. Those going into the apartments coming eastbound on Braddock Road, trying to turn left in, and somebody coming westbound or eastbound trying to turn into George Mason Forest. They are now sitting in left turn lanes. Neither one can see oncoming traffic, and they've got a deadlock because of the other car sitting in a left turn lane. You can't see the traffic coming the other direction. It's a very dangerous making that left turn. It's happened to me. I drive a Chevrolet Tahoe. I know that I'm higher than some other cars when I'm doing that, but you cannot see around the other cars. And both of us need access in there, but allowing left turns into each one is a problem. I would not want to not be able to make a left turn into my neighborhood coming when I'm going eastbound, and I know they need access into their neighborhood. Originally, I thought they would be able to go in through the light at Burke Station Road but they can't, there is no connection for them that way inside of the Woodley Chase area to get to their apartments.
Thank you, Steve. That's a really good point. We had not heard that yet this evening, so that's certainly something for VDOT to add to their list of concerns that we're hearing, folks.
There is one other issue. I mean, it is
Sure.
on grade at that intersection, so those of us trying to turn in Red Spruce are lower than most vehicles are lower. The other ones are higher. It became an issue several times while the construction was going on when you had a truck in there and trying to turn left into the neighborhood. And I mean, it's just very dangerous to try to make your left turn, and neither one can see. So now I'm going to pull back out and I'm going to go up and make a U-turn somewhere to get back into my neighborhood. So.
Got it. Yeah, thank you, Steve.
All right.
So at this point, I don't see any other hands up, but as promised, I want to make sure I give the opportunity to anyone who's on the phone. So if you're on the phone, oh, I do have a hand. Ann Hone. Go ahead, Ann.
Yes. Unfortunately, I came late, so you may have very well have already addressed this. But I can remember going to the first planning meetings that Erickson held. It was on the previous supervisor over at Robinson, and the message continued to be very loud and very clear that traffic was the main concern. And I think I went to 2 more of the meetings, and again, it was traffic is the main concern. And it just, even with not too many at Ilda and Woodley Chase, some partially occupied, but as I remember, what they told us the numbers were going to be and how they came up with those numbers just were not appropriate, and I really don't think it was well thought out to begin with. And now trying to come out of Red Spruce and go towards Burke Station it's not even worth trying anymore because of all the traffic. So again, I'm sorry if that's already been said, but I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Okay, now let me just open it up to phone callers. So I'm sure that you have an opportunity. If there's anyone who's dialed in by phone who would like to share anything, now is the time. You can just yell it out.
Because the first part.
If someone muted.
I had a question about the recreation center area.
Sure.
What are we anticipating there? Like, is that soccer field? Yeah. Like, are we going to, if that exit is not somehow changed by the DMV, could we see 40, 70 cars all leaving a game at once, trying to use that, and all of a sudden you turning out of Somerset, you turning at Somerset South? I mean, I'm just not sure what's going to be happening with that field.
Sure. And it is a little bit in flux at the moment, but I can share with you the history. So when the Erickson property was rezoned and approved, one of the things that my predecessor Supervisor Cook negotiated for was for Erickson to donate a small parcel of land, and you can see it there at the end of Rec Center Drive. They were to construct a parking lot and level out a pad site for the future construction of, by our rec center standards, a small rec center that would be an all abilities rec center. So specifically designed for people with disabilities. For example, there's a certain kind of basketball court and basketball floor that is ideal for wheelchair basketball and other kinds of recreational activities. That was the idea. I think the size that was envisioned was 35,000 square feet. To put that into context, our normal rec centers, the Audrey Moore Rec Center and others around the county are 150,000, 200,000 square feet. So this would be a relatively small building. My predecessor, Supervisor Cook, said that he would, because this isn't a project that is in the county's planning or capital improvement budget, he would go out and try to raise private sector dollars from corporations and foundations to construct this rec center, and has been working diligently to try to do that since he left office. I don't know at this point that there's a sufficient amount of money that's been raised so that it can move forward at any time soon. And we might have to reevaluate and scale back the vision a little bit for that. I can't say at this point what that would be. But in terms of impacts, traffic impacts, number of people, the worst case scenario from a traffic impact would be a 35,000 square foot rec center facility. I can't predict how many people would go in and out. There was, in the traffic studies that were done, projected at maximum about 1,000 vehicle trips per day. Just to put that in context, this stretch of Braddock Road sees 50 to 60,000 trips per day, setting aside these facilities that we're talking about here. So not an insignificant number. I think that's probably on the high end for what could end up happening there. But there isn't anything that's going to be built there at any time in the near future because the funding isn't yet secured. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I was just worried it could be, you know, a mass exit of vehicles following some kind of athletic event. So,
Yeah, I mean, and certainly, you know, there could be, like I described, a wheelchair basketball game, which ends at the same time, but not something where you would have hundreds of people coming and going at any one time. Okay, let me open it up to any other phone callers. We're almost, I do want to be respectful of folks' time and try to wrap up on time at 8:30. So if there aren't any other phone callers, I want to thank everyone in the community for sharing tonight. I think this is exactly what we hope to accomplish, for people to be able to hear directly from you. I do want to just provide an opportunity. If anyone from DMV or Erickson, we've already heard from VDOT a little bit, but any of those groups, if you have any parting thoughts or anything you would like to share with us about what you've heard tonight. Like I said, I didn't expect and don't expect that we will solve the problem here tonight, but I do expect that folks will take back what they've heard and work on ways to address the issues. But I want to thank you all for joining, and let me just start. DMV, I know we had Michael Slavin earlier. I don't know if he's still with us.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Walkinshaw. I'm still here.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Slavin with the Department of Motor Vehicles. We appreciate being included in this meeting and having an opportunity to hear what our neighbors have to say. It's important for us to be good neighbors, and I'll take back the comments and suggestions that I've heard tonight. We are already working on directional signage on Braddock to help our customers find us easily. And we had already installed directional signage on our property to help our customers safely and legally leave the customer service center. But based on the feedback tonight, we will look at making the signs clearer and possibly larger. Thank you for including us.
Thank you, Michael. I think we had Colin Sweeten from Erickson. Colin, anything that you would like to share?
Hope everyone can hear me. Supervisor, thank you all for all of your notes this evening. I've definitely been taking notes that we plan to take back to the community, and you know, I think my email is probably in this invite, but I want to encourage everyone to continue to reach out if you have any more concerns, But we've been in listen mode this evening, and we're looking forward to being part of the solution here. But thank you for the opportunity to participate this evening.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Andy and the VDOT team, we've already heard a fair bit from you, but anything else you'd like to share?
Well, sir, I'll just say again, thank you to everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and it was extremely helpful just to hear all the comments and understand the big picture and the context of some of the concerns. And we're going to take all these back. We've all been taking good notes. I'm sure we'll have additional conversations with the supervisor's office, as well as some of our partner agencies like the DMV and Fairfax County, and we'll see, what we can come up with to try and help with the situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And I don't want to leave out, I think we also have Ryan Nash from APA, which is the owner of the Ilda's Overlook Apartments. Ryan, anything you would like to share?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Supervisor Walkinshaw. And thank you to everyone in the community for your thoughts. Like everyone else, I've been taking some good notes. So I do want to we do take these concerns very seriously, and I want to make sure that we bring these back to the property management team over at Ilda's Overlook, and we'll continue to work through ways to address some of these issues. So thank you again for hosting this, and we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. And with that, I think we're ready to wrap up. I want to thank everybody for participating tonight. So I don't forget, I want to thank Marcia Pape and my office for pulling this all together. There's a lot of work to pull together a meeting like this with so many different groups involved. So thank you, Marcia, for your work. Most importantly, thank the community members for spending your time with us tonight to share. As you've heard, we have a lot of folks who are going to take back what they have heard tonight and try to look at what they can do to make some improvements. I will be following up with them and tracking this issue and helping to coordinate their work. And as we have been throughout this process, we will be in touch directly through the HOAs, the respective HOAs that are represented here tonight, to share information through them. And we'll also share information and updates through our broader newsletter. If you're not already subscribed to our newsletters, send us an email, braddock@fairfaxcounty.gov, and just say that you want to subscribe so you can stay up to date with these updates and others. So with that, we'll wrap up, and thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.